Welcome to Cura Talks, a podcast by Cura Health that brings you thoughtful conversations with healthcare professionals across Kuwait. From wellness myths to modern medicine, each episode gives you the insight and clarity you need to better understand your health and your choices. This October, as the world observes World Mental Health Day, we're shining a light on women's health from a different perspective, one that goes beyond the doctor's office. Joining me is Sara Abiqwa, a self-empowerment coach, to talk about the emotional, mental, and social pressures women face, from balancing roles to breaking stigma to making space for their own well-being. Because when we talk about women's health, we can't separate the physical from the mental. They're deeply connected and both deserve attention. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
We're here to talk about women's health. And when we hear women's health, people often think about doctors, screenings, pregnancy, but it's much bigger than that. From your perspective, how should we redefine women's health to include mental and emotional well-being?
I love this question. I think women's health is so much bigger than just the absence of disease, right? I believe that women's health is more about like a whole person health. It's not only certain phases of her life, whether it's puberty, it's reproduction or pregnancy or menopause. I believe it's more like the food she eats, her movement, her lifestyle, her emotions, what she's going through in her life. Because a lot of the times also emotions and physical health are really intertwined.
And what are some of the most common challenges women in Kuwait bring to you that maybe aren't being addressed in a medical setting?
There's so many things. And listen, after working with a lot of clients over the years, women generally go through the same thing, right? So my clients in Kuwait specifically, but also I've heard this from Australia and the US, they all go through the same thing. And mainly there are a couple of things that I'm going to talk about, okay? There's a lot of pressure on women to be perfect or be strong or show up as if they have everything figured out. There's a lot of pressure, like internalized pressure, whether it's family expectations, it's society expectations. And that tends to make women sometimes suppress how they're really feeling. So when you suppress how you feel, sometimes you get disconnected from not only how I'm feeling, but what do I need in this moment? And that's a huge issue that I face with my clients. Sometimes they're like, I know there's something, but I don't know what it is. Like, I can't put my finger on it. And that starts with a long conversation a woman needs to have with her own self, right? And also her relationship, not only with herself, but with her body, to understand how am I feeling? What do I need in this moment? There's also something that comes up, especially with the mom clients that I have, is they lose themselves in the role.
100%.
And sometimes the role is not only the mom role, but sometimes you lose yourself in the wife role, the daughter role, the career role. And sometimes they come to me and they're like, I have all of these things, but I still feel like there's something that feels off. I feel unfulfilled. And sometimes they're like, I don't know who I am anymore. So that's a huge question and a huge question and a huge conversation to start having with yourself, which is, who am I outside of the roles that I have in my life?
Right.
Who am I when I'm not a mom? Who am I when I'm not a wife? I'm not at my job. I'm not a manager to my team. To be able to always find that sense of equanimity and equilibrium with myself, where I feel like I'm honoring my truth and then I'm showing up in my life. And I feel like these topics are topics that show up a lot, but also are not addressed enough.
Right. And do you think stigma still prevents women from openly discussing things like stress, like anxiety, or even reproductive health, which is, I think, a very sensitive issue as well?
Oh, 100%. Before, the stigma was more, and let's be very honest, more shame around certain topics, which is, do I show up and say like, I'm stressed and I need help? There's kind of shame around this, right? Do I tell the people that I need help? Does that make me weak? How do I come across? Would I seem needy? Or for example, about reproductive health, and that comes from a personal experience, because I've been married for 12 years and I don't have children. And for a lot of people around me, they feel uncomfortable talking to me about this. So there's a stigma in society about what do we talk about with women? What do we not talk about? And I feel like this stigma also comes from a lot of pressure that comes from social media, of like everyone's showing the highlights of their life and the good moments and the moments where they feel like they're good. So we never talk about these things because we feel like, how am I coming across in this society that glorifies the perfect woman, right?
Right.
A society that glorifies, yes, be stressed, but go for it. A society that glorifies a woman that keeps pushing even when she's tired, or a woman that never opens up freely about her reproductive health because she doesn't want to be misunderstood, or she doesn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. So I feel like as women, it's really important for us to start bringing more vulnerability to the table and to the conversation, and start becoming part of the change that says, you know what, I'm going to talk about these topics because they exist.
Yeah.
Like if we're honest with each other, and you sit with women around you, most of the women at the table will be going through underlying chronic stress, but no one talks about it. Everyone's kind of like low-key tired, but no one talks about it, right? And you keep just pushing through. But sometimes in, for example, women's circles or group coaching programs, when women come together and I speak out of vulnerability and honesty from my own experience, everyone's like, finally, yes, someone who talks about this, I feel it too. And then someone goes, I feel it too. And it kind of just reminds you that we're not alone in this.
Do you feel women open up more in a setting like a women's circle where more people are sharing different things, or do they open up more privately when it's one-on-one with you?
To be honest, in both. I have a lot of clients who always say, I prefer one-on-one because it's more safe, it's more private, it's more just me providing a safe space for them to open up. And sometimes they shy away from saying, I don't feel comfortable in group settings. But then I say, you know what, come. Show up. You don't even need to say anything. Just listen. And then by the end of the conversation, I see them opening up and sharing because they're like, it feels so good to know that I'm not alone. Because sometimes even with me, I'm a sounding board for them. But when there's other women, it makes them feel like, yes, someone else gets me. Because let's be very honest, sometimes stress or going through like low-key stress or burnout or reproductive issues, sometimes in your head, you make yourself feel like I'm alone in this. No one would understand because no one is me and no one's going through what I'm going through. But then you come to a table where it's like a group setting and it's a safe space and you know that everyone's going through exactly what you're going through. Like I remember, Rula, at the beginning of my coaching practice, now I'm more like working with Arab women who live all around the world. But when I first started coaching, I had Western clients as well. And you'd be surprised. Women are women all around the world. We all go through the same things. We all want that sense of belonging, of feeling like we come to a space and we feel seen and we feel heard and we feel like I'm not alone in this. And that alone is so healing, just having a conversation that is honest and vulnerable at the same time.
Right. So what role do you think culture, social media, and expectations of women play in shaping how women talk about or even hide their struggles?
It's everything. Everything. I know I have a presence on social media and it's great and it gives me a platform where I can share my voice and like help people and serve others. But sometimes on social media, it's a two-edged sword, right? Because it's how you use it, how you're showing up on it. Like I remember when I first started showing up on my social media, yes, I wanted to help others, but I started getting a lot of messages that say, Sara, how are you positive all the time? How are you always happy? And that made me stop and think like, oh my God, how am I showing up on my social media platform that makes other people think I'm always happy all the time? And then I started reframing how I show up, how vulnerable I am. Because let's be very honest, on social media, everyone's showing the highlight of their lives, right? I'm showing the moment when I feel most confident, when I feel like I'm achieving a milestone in my life, or I have something to share and I come across as someone who has all the answers. But that's not true and it will never be true. I believe that everyone's trying to figure something out in their life, but no one talks openly about this on social media. So sometimes when you go on social media and you say the woman with the perfect body and the perfect life, this is too much, especially for women. And I believe, yes, you can do everything, but I don't believe you can do everything equally all the time. It's not possible. I always talk about this with my clients and I say, listen, guys, have priorities, but I call them priority balance. Have a priority balance. Or like, for example, today you have a deadline at your job. Maybe today your job is your priority, but that is okay because it's going to take from something else in your life.
Yeah.
So I feel there's a lot of pressure that's coming in through social media. And I want everyone that's listening to know that this is not reality. It's not real life. Listen to the things that you listen to and that inspire you on social media, but always come back to yourself and be like, okay, from all of the voices that are out there, what resonates with me? What do I feel is good for me? What matches my lifestyle? What do I want to focus on now? There's also a lot of like shame and stigma on like, so what do you do in your life when a woman sees another woman? And if, for example, you chose to not go to work and be a mom, that's judged, right? Or if you choose to leave your kids at home and go to work, you're also judged. Right. So no matter what you do as a woman, you're going to end up being judged one way or another. So that's why I feel like with the cultural pressure and the social pressure, it's so important to be rooted in your own self and what feels right for you, and be okay defending that to yourself before you defend it to anyone else, and believing in your choices and saying, this is my choice and I choose it for myself, even if someone else is telling me to do something else.
Is there a silent health issue, though, that you wish women would stop ignoring until it's too late?
There's two issues that come to mind that I feel like are really important. The first one is, I think there's an epidemic of it, which is stress. Because again, we talked about stress before, but I feel like chronic stress is something that sometimes goes under the radar, right? You are stressed for a very long time. You no longer know you're stressed anymore. You think just this is normal, right? And you keep going and you don't even know that you're stressed. But with time, what happens if we don't address this, if you don't take a moment in your time to sit with yourself, if you don't listen to these small cues that say, I'm not able to sleep properly, I'm very snappy, or I'm tired, I'm getting like gut issues all the time.
Right.
If you don't listen to these like low-key messages, the chronic stress is going to become exhaustion, then it's going to become fatigue, and then it's going to become burnout. Ula samahla, at a certain point, it might become physical illness. That's your body telling you, you are not listening to what's been going on for a very long time. Yeah. So that's definitely one of the issues that I feel like are important to understand how we're feeling in the moment and what we need. And the other issue that personally comes from a personal experience is endometriosis. We need to talk more about reproductive health issues for women. Like, I had endometriosis for years and I didn't know that I have it. When I reached the point and I was diagnosed with endometriosis, I thought I'm going to die. I didn't even know what the word means. I'm like, endometriosis? What does this mean? And I had to research and understand what this means. But when I started learning more and educating myself about it, I understood that for a very long time, I was normalizing things that should not be normalized. Right. I was normalizing period pain. I was normalizing having hip pain for a very long time and I didn't know. I was normalizing emotional fluctuations that also come from this. So I feel like we normalize a lot of things around reproductive health. And this is one of the things that women really need to be educated about, whether early on in schools or later on, or like having more access to resources. Or maybe when you go to your gyno tells you, hey, these are these books that you can read about the phase in your life, about your hormones, about what's happening in your body. Because when I visited a gyno and she said you have endometriosis, I had no resources. How amazing would it be if she said, you know what, here's this article about it. Don't be scared, read about it. It's fine. This is how you can treat it.
I think we're so good at masking now.
Yeah.
That it's, you believe that this is part of being, you know, the super mom or the superwoman, where you juggle all things and this is how it's supposed to be. And I think the realization now is that no, this is not how it's supposed to be. So how do you guide women then who feel like they're constantly giving to family, to work, to community, and rarely to themselves?
This is where coaching, I think, definitely comes in, because when I have this conversation with my clients, a lot of the times is also asking them, why are you doing this? Where does it come from? Do you get your sense of self-worth from giving to everyone around you and that makes you feel worthy? Were you praised as a child about giving and being like the one who shares all the time, even when she doesn't want to? Like, she's an amazing giver. She gives to everyone in her life. But there's a part that never gets spoken about, which is self-giving. Giving to yourself. You're there in your life. Why do we always look at relationships as me with external people around me? So what about your relationship with yourself? Where do you fall in this equation? Because when you think about it, you're the only common factor in everything in your life. And you can't give from an empty cup. We were discussing this earlier. Yeah. And we said if you give from an empty cup, you're running on empty for a very long time. You start feeling frustrated. Sometimes you feel resentful. Sometimes you have anger. I have clients who come to me and they're just so angry. And when we talk about their anger, it's just telling them, enough, stop, set boundaries, show up, be there for yourself. Because sometimes this is the only thing that we need, is to start redefining the concept of giving to include self-giving in it?
Look, I think in contrast, it's important to also have compassion for, let's say, someone with kids, for example. The first 3 years, even if you do want to prioritize yourself and you're aware that this is something that you have to do, that sometimes you just physically don't have the time. As a woman, you need to be there for, your spouse, your children, your job. You also need to look a certain part in society, let's say, social expectations as well. So sometimes you're aware of it, but there's just physically no time. And I think to add to what you were saying is that sometimes it's okay to take a step back and say, you know what, this is temporary. Like this is the situation now, as long as you have the awareness that it'll pass. Like we'll get out of this.
Again, going back to priority balance. Also, a lot of my clients, when they become moms, they come to me and they say, I miss who I was before.
100%.
I really miss who I was before. And I tell them, listen, it's not about going to who you were before, because if there's a timeline for your life, there's you before becoming a mom, there's you becoming a mom, and there's you after becoming a mom. So I'm like, instead of always being harsh on yourself and saying, I miss that version of me, what if the question is, who am I now?
And make a relationship
with that person and figure out this new version of yourself. Always like have compassion, like you said, with yourself, but you have 1,440 minutes in the day. Sometimes you can take 3 minutes to just sit in your bed before you wake up and just breathe and be like, just put your hand on your heart, just acknowledge your own existence and be like, okay, I'm here. Even if these are the only 3 minutes I'm going to have with myself today, I'm going to have them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there. I'm going to be like, okay, I got you. This is temporary. I love you. Tell me what you need. I'm here. Just that, like touching base with yourself is enough to give you that sense of safety with yourself, to be like, okay, for the rest of the day, I can just show up and give to everyone around me. At least I took this for myself, you know?
Yeah. Do you believe self-care for women is misunderstood as a luxury when in reality it is a necessity?
It's 100% a necessity. And I feel like now everyone's starting to catch up to that, because when we say self-love or self-care is a luxury, it's when we talk about like, I'm going to have a spa day today, or like go do my nails, or like a massage. And I love this and I do it all the time. But it's not that. It's so much deeper than that. Self-care is first and foremost acknowledging the self, right? Acknowledging your own presence in your own life. That's number one. I say it's a necessity because everything you do now is, even if you don't see the results now as you do it, because sometimes when you start taking care of yourself after a long time where you didn't even prioritize yourself, it's going to feel unfamiliar or maybe uneasy. You take care of your mental health, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, you're going to be like, oh my God, I thank this version of me for showing up, because if she didn't do that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Like I was talking to my husband the other day and I was telling him, one of the things that I'm grateful for the most is the gift of awareness. Because I have a very intense mind. Like my mind tends to worry and like,
I know.
exactly. Like it tends to over worry sometimes or overthink. And sometimes it takes me down a rabbit hole that's not very pleasant. And I always say the gift of awareness is knowing how to deal with that when that comes up. So until now, I feel like, oh my God, I'm really grateful for myself, for the practices I do, to be able to always build the emotional resilience that helps me show up to the difficulties in my life. Because self-growth or like well-being is not about having the perfect life or not having any difficulties. It's knowing, okay, how do I show up and deal with them as they come up? Because let's be very honest, life is tricky and it's going to always throw new things at you. So it's all about how do you build enough emotional resilience to be able to deal with these as they arise, you know?
Right. What do you think healthcare providers can do to create safer, more open spaces for women to share what they're really going through?
I think patience and curiosity. Like sometimes you go into a doctor's room and you feel rushed, right? You feel rushed, like as if he or she, they don't have enough time. And then you feel you can't open up enough. And then they end up leading the conversation because they're like, okay, just let me tell you what's happening. And you're like, but I want to share also what's going on with me. So I feel like if any doctor is listening to this, I would just say sometimes patience and curiosity go a long way. Because for a woman, when she feels safe, she will share. And when she starts sharing, that alone helps the doctor understand why is she going through what she's going through.
And how do you see empowerment coaching and healthcare working together to better serve women? What role do you play as a coach, and what role should a therapist, clinician, or medical doctor play, and how does it all come together?
When I get a client and they ask me, like, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? I always give them this example. Imagine you have a goal, you want to climb a mountain to the mountaintop, right? And on campus, you have a guide and you have a doctor. So when you come and you say, I want to climb to the mountaintop, they get you physically checked. But then you have a knee problem. You can't go directly and start climbing the mountain. You have to address the knee issue first, and then you start climbing the mountain towards your goal. I would say this is the difference between therapy and coaching. The therapist is the doctor, where you need that sometimes to address certain issues that coaches are not certified to address. But then once that happens, they go to their coach and they start working on achieving their goals and like understanding where they are now moving forward in their lives. I have a lot of clients who also work hand in hand, like they have their therapist and they have me, and we work together. But also for coaches who might be listening to this, please always have the responsibility to know when to say to your client, this is not under coaching, this is therapy.
Yeah.
So I refer you to a therapist first, get cleared by your therapist to be able to do the coaching, because that's really important, because we're certified in two different things. But now talking about like physicians or medical doctors, I would say coaches come in to just bridge the gap that happens after the healing process. So doctors are really needed to diagnose and to treat. But then how powerful would it be for a doctor to say, you know what? I'm going to introduce you to a coach that's going to now help you have a plan moving forward to build the lifestyle, the mindset, and the emotional resilience to help you keep moving towards well-being.
Right.
So now you get diagnosed and treated, but now you have a plan to keep working on it and make that your lifestyle.
And at what point do you tell a client, all right, you're ready to go, you don't need me anymore?
I always tell my clients, you don't need me, you want me. There's a difference. I believe that every client is capable to take care of their own selves. And that's why I feel like a good coach is a good coach, because they hold the client to a higher version of themselves that is capable and willing and strong and powerful. But I would say I never tell a client that you're on your own now. It has to always come from them. But I always tell them, like, my job with you is to teach you all the tools that you at a certain point in time can work on with yourself. But I have clients who've been with me for 3 years now, and they don't see me every week. Sometimes they see me once a month, but they want that accountability in their life. Mm-hmm. So coaching is a relationship, right? The client is the main project and the main focus, but then we both focus on that in a way that helps the client at the rhythm that serves the client. So sometimes I start with them on weekly basis, but then they say, Sara, I feel like I'm ready to do bi-weekly or see you every 3 weeks now. We always keep redesigning the relationship in a way that serves the client and helps them then step into their own selves and work on that on themselves.
So in your experience then, how can women become advocates for their own well-being?
By choosing to prioritize their well-being. And one of the things that women need to start saying, being more comfortable with, is saying no. Saying no to things that they don't want to, right? Taking care of yourself and your health and your well-being, you're also changing the narrative for every woman that comes after you. And that's huge. We are all part of this collective consciousness of what makes a woman, and you choosing to do that is powerful for you, but it's also powerful for everyone around you.
Thank you, Sara, for joining our show.
Thank you so much for having me.